Hey everyone, welcome to the Real Ones, Real Talks podcast. And you may be wondering, hold on a minute, this isn't John. You're right, it's me, co-host Will, doing the intro today. I know, it's kind of bizarre. John is here.
What's up, y'all?
See, he's there. But I will say today, I'm a little bit of an improviser, right? I love to improvise things. John just said what was it? What was the...
You said you were flying by the seat of your
You
pants.
said that.
I'm a preparer.
Yeah. So
I don't just improvise.
for me, he goes, "What's your podcast idea?" I said, "Dude, don't even worry about it. Trust me." He's like, "I'm scared." And so I feel like it's a cool little segment. I'm a God-fearing man. John's a God-fearing man. Hopefully some of you listeners are God-fearing people as well. I thought it'd be cool to dive into some Bible stories. And there's one in particular I find neat, which is the story of Job. If you guys aren't familiar with that, we're going to dive into something else first, but the story of Job is really good. And I know I was just telling John about it. So he's kind of on the corner over here. He's looking into Daniel, the story of the lion's den. That's a great one. We'll talk about that too. But one I kind of want to bring up first is the story of the talking donkey.
Yeah, so I've heard of it, but I haven't heard of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued to hear
If you've grown up in church, you guys may have heard the story of the donkey, and it may have been a forgotten one. Because for me, when I looked this up today, I was like, I feel like I've heard this before. And like my nostalgic neurons in my brain just started firing. Like, I want to know more about this donkey. Tell me about this donkey.
Donkey.
So I'm going to go ahead and dive into this, but I do want to say, for you guys listening out there and any curiosity strikes, I am pulling this out of the KJV version of the Bible. I don't discriminate what you're reading out of, guys. Read whatever you want to read out of. I am going to refer to the verses that are being mentioned. I may read them, I may not. So this story of the talking donkey is in Numbers 22. And to give some context, we're going to build up. Wow, voice crack. I'm going to start over on that, so get ready to edit that one. It's in Numbers 22. And to build up, we're going to build up a little bit on this. We do end up talking about the story of the donkey in verses 22 through 35. But I'm going to kind of read through some summaries of the first couple of verses before we get into this donkey story. Verses 1 through 7. The Israelites have just defeated the Amorites and are camped in the plains of Moab. King Balak of Moab is terrified of them because of their vast numbers and previous victories. He sends messengers, including elders of Moab and Midian, to Balaam, a renewed diviner in Pethor, to hire him to curse Israel. Balak believes that if Balaam curses them, he can defeat them in battle. Balaam's first encounter with God, verses 8 through 14. Balaam entertains the messengers and seeks the Lord's guidance. God explicitly tells Balaam, "Thou shalt not go with them, thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed." Balaam, therefore, sends the messengers away, stating that he cannot go with them because the Lord has forbidden it. Balak's persistence and Balaam's second inquiry, verses 15 through 21. Balak, undeterred, sends a second, more numerous and honorable delegation, promising Balaam even greater riches and honor if he will come and curse Israel. Balaam, though reiterating that he cannot go beyond the word of the Lord, asks God for permission. This time, God permits him to go, but with a strict condition. "Only the word that I shall tell thee, that thou shalt go." Balaam then saddles his donkey and sets out with Balak's princes. Here's a story of the talking donkey. God's anger is kindled because Balaam went. That's why. I'm sorry. That's why I'm sorry. It has like a parentheses thing, and this confused me, and this is why I'm going to say this part actually before I continue on. So I was reading, and I'm like, God's anger is kindled. Why is he mad? Because he just told Balaam he could go. Why is God mad? And so this is likely due to think about an alternative, right? Like, do you ever have yourself in a situation where you're praying for something and you're like, Lord, if you give me this, I will like do whatever you want. But really the motive is you want that thing.
Yeah.
So I believe that this is because Balaam's motives were wrong. He wanted the riches. He's like, yeah, God, I'll do whatever you say, but I'm going there for the riches, and God knew that was the alternative motive. So anyway, I'll repeat this again. God's anger is kindled because Balaam went. The angel of the Lord stands in the way to oppose Balaam, and Balaam cannot see the angel, but his donkey can. The donkey turns off the road into the field, and Balaam strikes it. The angel then stands in a narrow path between vineyards, and the donkey presses against the wall, crushing Balaam's foot, and Balaam strikes it again. Finally, the angel stands in a very narrow place with no room to turn, and the donkey lies down under Balaam. Balaam, enraged, strikes the donkey a third time. Miraculously, the Lord opens the mouth of the donkey and speaks unto Balaam, asking why he has beaten it 3 times. Balaam responds, arguing with the donkey. He's arguing with a donkey.
So he's not going to ask, wait, hold up. Why is this donkey talking all of a sudden?
Here's the kicker. Then the Lord opens Balaam's eyes, and he sees the angel of the Lord with a drawn sword. The angel rebukes Balaam, explaining that the donkey saw him and had saved Balaam's life. For the angel would have slain Balaam if the donkey had not turned aside. Balaam repents, saying, I have sinned, and offers to turn back. The angel tells him to proceed, but to speak only with what the angel commands him. So then now we're seeing that Balaam meets Balak. Balaam continues his journey and is met by Balak. Balak expresses his frustration at Balaam's initial refusal, but Balaam assures Balak, there's a lot of Balaam and Balak here, that he can only speak the words of God puts in his mouth. He can only speak the words God put in his mouth. They then go to, good Lord, some place, Kurajah Hazoth. And Berith offers sacrifices, inviting Balaam and the princes to feast. The chapter ends with Balaam going to a high place to observe the people of Israel. And that's the end of chapter 22. So we don't see here, at least, what happens to this, like, cursing or whatever, which we could dive into that another time, or we could dive into it now if you want. But
I mean, I kind of want to hear that.
Okay, I don't have that written down, so you'll have to give me a minute to look. Actually, we'll read out of the KJV Bible here in just a second, but I also want to pull out some lessons, some valuable lessons out of that story. So, despite the schemes of men, like Balak to curse Israel, God's will prevails. He will protect his chosen and turns intended curses into blessings. This demonstrates that no human power or sorcery can thwart or get in the way of God's divine plan for those he had blessed, for they are blessed. That's out of verse 12. Wow, this references Peter. There's a lot of different points you can pull out of this, right? Obedience. Balaam's initial refusal to go with Balak's messengers was obedient, but his subsequent inquiry demonstrated a wavering heart. True obedience involves not just following commands, but having a heart fully submitted to God's will, even when it means sacrificing personal gain or popularity. So again, it's one of those things where, like, he shouldn't have even prayed about it the second time, and maybe that's what frustrated God. Was like, I already said no the first time. What makes you think I'm going to change my mind again?
Yeah. Something it's like, I call it comical, is you can ignore God's plan, and when you're stubborn, he's going to get his message across.
Oh yeah.
And in this case, it's a donkey.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. You're not going to listen to me? Fine. Okay. Here.
Arguing with it.
Yeah, then you're going to argue. So, like, my first thought on that, right? If I'm arguing with God, right, and I choose to leave, and then my donkey's freaking out, and then my donkey starts talking, I don't think the first thing that's going through my head is I'm going to argue with the donkey.
Imagine this too. Imagine being so angry at that donkey, you're not seeing the angel with a sword in front of you. So not only are you like, I'm talking to a donkey right now, you're so mad at it that you're not looking over, like, straight ahead of you, and you're seeing an angel with a drawn sword. I wonder, like, it says it reveals it, but it would be hilarious if this angel with the sword, kind of like poking at the donkey's back, like slowly moving the sword up in the Balaam's vision. He's like,
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. Something ain't right here. Also, God's patience and mercy with Balaam, right? Like, okay, we see that he shouldn't have asked a second time, but God entertains it, right? Despite his covetousness and stubbornness, God still engaged with him, sent the angel to warn him, and ultimately used him for his purposes. This demonstrates God's patience and his ability to work through imperfect people to accomplish his sovereign will. This is actually a cool thing to hear, because Andrew Rivera, the guy who we had on our last episode, he had told me something that has stuck with me. It's, how can someone believe that God's not real when he has taken the most broken people and made him his most valuable warriors? Like, let's think about Paul. Saul to Paul. If you guys aren't a reader of the Bible or you don't follow God and you're listening, imagine, like, I wouldn't say a Hitler, but he pretty much was, he was close to it. This guy was a Christian killer, Saul. Saul was a Christian killer. He was killing Christians all over the place. And then one day he's been told to travel to a place. I can't remember the story. It's very vague in my mind. I remember the core. And on his way there, he gets blinded. And in this blind vision, it's God. And he tells him to go there, and instead of killing Christians, to flip the script. Since that happened, Saul became Paul. He became one of the most biggest names. If you guys don't read the Bible, you've heard Paul. You've heard of that name. You may not know much about it, but you've heard of that name. He's a pretty good guy in the Bible. And I would say, if you guys don't know the stories, go read them. Romans, Acts,
Romans through Philemon.
Yeah, there you go. Romans through Philemon. He knows. Go read those, seriously. Like, you can read them in chronological order. I'm pretty sure, I think they're all there in chronological order, aren't they? Or am I wrong?
Not sure.
Okay, because I think it's, whatever. Anyway, yeah, it's cool how, like, God takes those moments and then makes people out of them. You know,
he makes broken,
he makes
destroyed things into, like, these great, awesome, beautiful things.
Yeah. And that's, it's to prove a very valid point, which is that even the most broken people can still find God.
Yeah.
It's not about how rich you are, how good you are, how perfect you are. It's not about that. It's just about that relationship you have.
That makes you a stronger person, because God takes you at your lowest, your most broken down point, and builds you up to greatness.
Yeah. Let's see what else is in here. There's a couple of questions, and we can answer them, or these can kind of be something that the listeners think about. But what donkeys in your life might God be using to get your attention when you're stubbornly pursuing your own desires? And then how does this story show us God's power to work through anyone, even those with mixed motives? We kind of already established that one. What seemingly small and insignificant things might God be using to guide or protect you? I feel like those are all pretty good questions, and maybe that second one we might not have hit as hard because it says mixed motives, which is pretty good. I do like that concept of mixed motives because, like I was talking about earlier, I feel like in that situation where you feel like you have an underlying motive of, like, I want to do this, God, but in reality, like, I want to do it for you, but in reality, you have the motive of something else.
Tell me if I'm wrong on this. So quid pro quo. So you're trying to do that with God. I'll do something for you, but you need to do something for me. So you want me to go and do this, but I'm not going to go do that unless you do this first.
That's not necessarily what I'm implying.
Okay.
I'm implying that it's not like a favor for favor thing. It's a, like, I'm doing that. Like, let's say someone's doing something and they're expecting something in return, but they're not going to necessarily say it. Or like,
so like I'm gonna go wash and detail your car, but without saying it to you, I want you to do something for me.
In a way.
Is that like that?
In a way, it's kind of hard to explain, I guess, because in my mind, I'm understanding it the way I'm saying it, which is like, let's say that you and me go to Walmart, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go to Walmart with you. What you don't know is I have something there that I really want. I'm not going to tell you. Like, let's say I have a group of buddies there. I'm going to leave with them. And you don't know that. So you think we're going to hang out at Walmart. We're going to get stuff, maybe like have a cool picnic, go on a day. I'm just kidding. No, not that. That's flamboyant, guys. I'm just joking. Well, we're going to go to Walmart, maybe go on ride our bikes or motorcycles afterwards and stuff like that. But what we do, we get to Walmart, maybe on our motorcycles, and I'm like, see you, John. I'm like, what?
Okay.
I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go hang out with these guys. But you didn't know my motive. God knew Balaam's motive here, which was he wanted the finances in the end.
Yeah.
It's like he told God, yes, I will follow your rules. And that's all he thought God knew. But God knew that once he got to Balak, he was only going to be there for the riches. And so he quickly and humbly reminded Balaam, you need to follow what I'm saying before he got there, because he already knew that this was going to happen. And so he had stopped it dead in its track. Like, imagine you knew I was going to hang out with my buddies before we got to Walmart, and I said, all right, I'll follow you, and you took me all the way to Roll King. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that. So he stopped him dead at his track and said, no, you're not doing this. I'm making sure this is going to happen, because he knows, and he changed his course.
See, on that part of things, with the power of God, right? He knows everything, even before you know it.
Yep.
Why would you do that? Like, so I don't want to understand it, because I'd probably have to be doing something so awful.
Here's how you can't understand it. We are natural born sinners, man. We are born to go against God. It takes fight through us. It takes us fighting to get out of that. It does. And then, so that's why Balaam asking a second time, that was his own self. That was his sinful self asking the second time. Because he already knew the answer in his head. It's like when your dad tells you no, or your mom tells you no. Do you think the next day they're going to say yes?
No, you just ask.
It's going to be no.
Yeah.
So the first time, okay, that's reasonable. Ask me. The second time, it's because you want to do it. And really, you're asking a second time because you don't want no for an answer. And on some occasions, people don't take no for an answer. So we're sinful people, man.
Yeah. Well,
We're sinful.
We wouldn't have as many issues in the world today if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. Let's do this. Oh, we're gonna do the other chapter of Numbers, right? So let's go ahead and read through that. Do you want to by chance go ahead and, in case I can't explain some things in proper verbiage, could you look up a KJV summary of Numbers 23 while I read it?
You said of Numbers?
Yeah.
What chapter again?
23, because I believe we just came out of 22. So 23, we should see the continuance of Balaam's journey. You don't have to read it just yet. Just keep that up as I'm reading, and then if I'm explaining maybe something a bit off, just tell me.
Yeah, got you.
Or if I'm asking questions. Okay. Chapter 23, verse 1, if anyone's keeping up. If you're driving, don't open your Bible. Just listen. I'll try to read slow. I will have you know. This is KJV. Some of the words are a little hard to pronounce. I may skip over them. I may try to pronounce them, and you guys can correct me in your own head and just know that's what it means. Okay.
Hey, just keeping it real with the KJV.
Yeah. I love KJV, and that's what I was raised with. That's what I'm going to stick to. Anyway, so chapter 23, verse 1. And Balaam said unto Balak, build me here 7 altars, and prepare me here 7 oxen and 7 rams. And Balak did as Balaam had spoken. And Balak and Balaam offered on every altar a bullock and a ram. And Balaam said unto Balak, stand by thy burnt offering, and I will go. Peradventure the Lord will come to meet me, and whatsoever he showeth me I will tell thee. And he went to an high place. And God met Balaam, and he said unto him, I have prepared 7 altars, and I have offered up every altar a bullock and a ram. And the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth, and said, return unto Balak, and thus thou shalt speak. And he returned unto him, and lo, he stood by his burnt sacrifice, he and all the princes of Moab. And he took up his parable, and said, Balak, the king of Moab, hath brought me from Aram out of the mountains of the east, saying, come, curse me Jacob, and come defy Israel. How shall I curse whom God hath not cursed? How shall I defy whom the Lord hath not defied? For from the top of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. Lo, the people shall dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob, and the number of the 4th part of Israel? Let me die the death of righteous, and let my last end be like his. And Balak said unto Balaam, what hast thou done unto me? I took thee to curse mine enemies, and behold, thou hast blessed them altogether. And he answered and said, must I not take to speak Must I not take heed to speak that which the Lord hath put in my mouth? And Balak said unto him, Come, I pray thee, with me unto another place, from whence thou mayest see them. Thou shalt see but the utmost part of them, and thou shalt not see them, and curse me them from thence. And he brought him unto the field of Zophim, the top of, it's a place, Pisgah. Sounds wrong. Pisgah, thank you. And built 7 altars, and offered a bullock and a ram on every altar. And he said unto Balak, Stand here by thy burnt offering, while I meet the Lord yonder. The Lord met Balaam, and put a word in the mouth, and said, Go back unto Balak, and say this. And when he came to him, behold, he stood by his burnt offering, and the princes of Moab with him. And Balak said unto him, What hath the Lord spoken? And he spoke up his parable, and he said, Rise up, Balak, and hear. Hearken unto me, thou son of Zippor. God is not a man, that he should lie, neither the Son of Man, that he should repent, hath he said. And shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall not make it good? Behold, I have received commandment to bless, and he hath blessed, and I cannot reverse it. He hath not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither hath he seen persevereness in Israel. The Lord his God is with him, and the shout of the king is among them. God brought them out of Egypt. He has it where the strength of a unicorn. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, neither is there any divination against Israel. According to this time shall it be said of Jacob and Israel what God hath brought. What hath God wrought? Thank you. Behold, the people shall rise up as a great lion, and lift up himself as a young lion. And he shall not lie down until he eat of his prey, and drink the blood of the slain. And Balak said unto Balaam, Neither curse them at all, nor bless them at all. But Balaam answered and said unto Balak, Told I not thee, saying that all the Lord speaketh that I must do? And Balak said unto Balaam, Come, I pray thee, I will bring thee into another place. Peradventure it will please God that thou mayest curse them from thence. And Balak brought Balaam unto the top of Peor, that looked toward And Balaam said unto Balak, Build up here 7 altars, and prepare me 7 bullocks and 7 rams. Balak did as Balaam had said, and offered a bullock and ram unto every altar. And it wants to go to 24. I'm going to see if I can figure out what happens instead of reading through all of these. Balak was angered. Balak's anger was kindled against Balaam. This is chapter 24, verse 10. He put his hands together, and Balak said unto Balaam, I call thee the curse, my enemies. Thou hast blessed. Altogether bless them these 3 times. Seems like Balak is like a very, he is not breaking. I want to see if he breaks. If he breaks or dies. So something happens, and then Balaam in 25, it looks like he returned to his place, and then Balak also went his own way. What did your chapter 23 say about?
So like at the ending?
Just anything in general? Is there anything there that kind of sticks out to you?
So I kind of just have it's like bullet points. Oh, let's see. So it gives a little pre-context for 22. So the king of Moab, Balak, sees the Israelites camping nearby and becomes terrified of their numbers and strength. He calls for Balaam, a well-known prophet for hire, to come cure Israel, hoping curse Israel, hoping it will weaken them. God tells Balaam not to curse them because they are blessed. Eventually Balaam goes, but only under the condition that he will speak only what God tells him. Sorry, the Balak and Balaam thing is can we pick?
Let's read on and see what happens in 23 between, because it looks like they're kind of
so in 23, that's what I'm working on getting to. So, Balak takes Balaam to the high place called Bamothabal. Sure. From where he can see a portion of the Israelites. Balaam tells Balak to build 7 altars, and they will sacrifice 7 bullocks and 7 rams, an attempt to gain favor with God. So Balaam prepares or separates himself to seek the Lord, and Balaam separates himself to seek the Lord, and God meets with him, putting words in his mouth. Balaam returns and delivers his first oracle. How shall I curse whom God hath not cursed? Or shall I defy whom the Lord hath not defied? Then he proclaims that Israel is a people set apart, dwelling alone, not mingling with the nations. Balaam expressed strange admiration. Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my last end be this. So in short, God blessed Israel, and Balaam can't do anything to change that. Balak is furious, saying he hired Balaam to curse, not to bless. But Balaam reminds him he can only speak what God's given him. And then it goes on. So it's like the first part of the chapter. So the second part of the chapter, Balak tries thinking maybe a new vantage point will change Balaam's message. So he takes him to the top of Pisgah, overlooking a different portion of Israel. Again, 7 altars and 7 bullocks and rams. Once again, Balaam goes to meet God, and God gives him another message. Balaam's second oracle is even stronger. God is not a man that he shouldn't lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. So behold, I have received commandments to bless, and he hath blessed. I cannot reverse it. So Balaam declares that God is faithful, unchanging, and sovereign. Israel has no sin in God's eyes because the Lord is with them, and they shout triumph like the great king is among them. And then he compares Israel to the powerful wild ox, untouchable by magic or sorcery. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, neither is there any division against Israel. The prophecy ends with a picture of Israel rising up like a lion, fierce, strong, victorious. And then again, Balak is angry, telling him Balaam not to
Is this 24 or 23 now?
This is the ending of 23. So again, Balak is angry, telling Balaam not to curse or bless them at all. Balaam repeats, he must only say what God puts in his mouth.
Okay. So 24, reading about that, I feel like I want to know what happens to Balak at this point, because obviously we know that
In chapter
Balaam.
24.
So I'm looking that up. I just looked it up. That kind of start the chapter off. Balaam sees that it pleases the Lord to bless Israel, so he no longer seeks enchantments. Instead, he turns his face towards the wilderness, and the Spirit of God comes upon him. He begins to speak, identifying himself as the man whose eyes are open, hearing the words of God and seeing the vision of the Almighty. So it talks about the prophecies of Israel, beautiful encampments, like gardens by the river, and cedar trees planted by the Lord. He declares that Israel's seed shall be in many waters, symbolizing great fruitfulness and power. So we get to Balak's anger in verses 10 through 14. Balak's wrath is kindled against Balaam. He claps his hands in frustration and scolds Balaam for blessing his enemies 3 times instead of cursing them. Balak dismisses Balaam, refusing him to the promised reward. He tells him to flee to his place. And Balaam reminds Balak that he had previously stated he could not go beyond the word of the Lord. He then says he will advise Balak what his people, Israel, shall do to his people, Moab, in the later days. So Balaam reiterates that he speaks as one, hearing the words of God, seeing the vision of the Almighty, and having his eyes open. He prophesies a future time, seeing a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. This significant prophecy is pointed to a future king, or ultimately Christ. This star will smite the corners of Moab and destroy all the children of Seth, referring to the Moabites. So it's going to destroy his kingdom. Edom will be a possession, and will also be dispossessed by Israel. He then sees Amalek and prophesizes their ultimate destruction. Finally, Balaam foretells, there's other things in here too, but I'm kind of skipping. Balaam foretells of invaders from the coast of Chittim, likely Cyprus or the Mediterranean coastlands, possibly referring to the Greeks or Romans, who will afflict the Hebrews and they also shall perish. After delivering these prophecies, Balaam rises, departs, and returns to this place, and Balak goes his way. So in essence, Verse 24 highlights God's unwavering commitment to bless Israel, using a diviner like Balaam to declare his sovereign will and foreshadowing the rise of a mighty ruler from Israel who will conquer its enemies. So, in reality, Balak, he's got something coming to him, and it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, for people who don't read, Old Testament is crazy, and we're gonna see these other stories unfold, and we're gonna see, you guys are gonna see what I mean by that, versus the New Testament, aka our lives right now, which we have been given the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate lamb, Jesus, to save us and get us to heaven, and so we don't have to sacrifice lambs and the perfect lambs and many other things I won't dive into here because I want to try to keep it a little base, but. I feel like I've been talking a whole lot. I think instead of me doing Job now, I think we save that as the last story, and I think we should go ahead and move over to
You want
Daniel.
Daniel? All right.
What do you think?
Cool. I'm good with that. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Although I dig that story. Although I'm kind of digging for more. I was looking, trying to find the ending. I'm waiting for God. So back to Old Testament. I'm waiting for God to kill this dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh yeah, he was walking and he was blown to a million pieces, or a donkey killed him.
My guess is it's going to be his kingdom falling, and he's going to die with his kingdom.
Yeah.
When it falls, that's my guess.
Okay, so because there's probably going to be some people that aren't I would say churchy or reading the Bible, so I'm going to give a little context to just give a little bit backstory to Daniel, because Daniel kind of has a wild life.
Yeah.
So, just some quick things. So Daniel is taken from his home in Judah, Judah, right? Judah.
Yeah.
I'm having a brain fart, dude. I hate working from home on a computer all day because my brain's fried. So Daniel's taken from his home in Judah as a teenager when Babylon is conquered. Or when Babylon conquered it. He was forced into a foreign culture with new language, new rules, new expectations, but he never lost who he was. And then from day one, Daniel always stood out. So he refused to eat the food that went against his beliefs. He worked with the kings. I mean, he was punished for it, which it goes into. Seriously, go read the story of Daniel. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
So he interpreted dreams for the, I would say, higher ups, the kings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was thrown into prison for it and everything, and then came back out. He was wrongly accused of something, and then he rose to power. He lived with integrity in the world when the rest of the world didn't honor God. And then by the time we get to Daniel in chapter 6, which is Daniel in the lion's den, he's much older. He's been serving different kings for decades, and he's become kind of sharp and faithful. And so King Darius has a plan to make him the ruler of the entire kingdom. But like most people who get in high positions, and I don't want to say are favored, because obviously he wasn't favored. He heard that you're gonna make enemies along the way. So we'll kind of jump into it. Once again, we're gonna stay kind of true to the King James version just for everything. Apologize for those who don't, because it does make it a little bit more challenging to read. So we'll start it off. So Daniel basically gets promoted. So in verses 1 and 2, so Darius set over the kingdom 120 princes and 3 presidents, of whom Daniel is one of them. So Daniel's basically the CEO, or the kind of the mini king and he's running the business and he's doing pretty good. So then Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. So he was doing pretty good, and he was kind of making some people jealous. So the presidents and the princes sought to find an occasion against Daniel, but they couldn't find one. So he really didn't have any, I would say, what is it, skeletons in the closet?
Yeah.
Really didn't have any of those. So these men, they couldn't find anything against him. So except the one thing they could find against him was the law of his God. So God. So they couldn't catch him doing anything, couldn't find anything. So they decide to basically attack his faith. So they assembled the kings together and they tried to get a petition. Basically, you can't pray or do anything for 30 days. So yeah, you can't pray or do anything for 30 days. Otherwise, you'll be cast in the den of lions. So they play into the king's ego a little bit. Let's make everyone pray to you for a month, and if he fails, then we'll throw him into the lion's den. So they signed the decree, but nothing really changed because Daniel just kept doing what he was doing. So they write the decree, they sign it and everything. So now Daniel knew it was signed. So they went into his house and he was praying. So he prayed 3 times a day and prayed. And basically they broke into his house. 1 second. Sorry. I lost track of thought here.
There you go.
So as he did before time, so he didn't start praying because he didn't start praying because he was scared. He just kept doing what he did. And the men assembled, they found Daniel praying, and they knew they would, like they knew the whole time because it was a setup. So yeah, they knew it was a setup. They went to use it against him. And then in verse 12, so hast thou not signed a decree that every man shall seek petitions, shall cast into the den of lions? That Daniel prayed to not you, but to God. And then the king was kind of displeased with himself and realized what happened. And he said, and labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. So in my interpretation, it means they had till the end of the day to put him in there. So he knows he messed up, but now he's kind of held to the same standard. Like, hey, you got to do this. You signed it. So by law, the Medes, and the Persians was permitted, even though the king couldn't reverse it. The king commanded that they brought Daniel and cast him in the den of lions. Now the king spoke and said unto Daniel, that God who thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. And a stone was brought, and the king sealed it. Then the king passed the night fasting, and he couldn't sleep. And then the king, so basically, the king's tossing and turning all night, can't sleep. Meanwhile, Daniel's down in the lion's den, trusting the Lord. In 19, then the king arose very early and went kind of in a hurry down to the lion's den and checked Daniel. O Daniel, is thy God able to deliver thee from the lion? And Daniel said, O king, live forever. My God hath sent an angel, and he had shut the lions' mouths. I'm kind of translating a little bit. Basically, the king rushes down there. Daniel, you alive? Yeah, I'm good. God's got me. God's got my back.
Mm-hmm.
The lions' mouths are shut. They're just sitting over there chilling. And then, so no manner of hurt was upon him because he believed in God. So they brought the men that accused Daniel and set him up and cast them into the den of lions. And basically, which I don't get why it leaves this part out. it was Daniel. It wasn't just the men who accused Daniel. It was their whole families.
Where the Old Testament kicks in, guys.
Yeah. So this is like, I call it the brutality of the Old Testament.
It's God's wrath.
So yeah, they take not the guys just that accused him. They take them, their entire families, and throw into the lion's den. And of course, what do the lions do now that they've been starving all night because they've been looking at Daniel and like, oh, look, God said we can't eat them. We just got to sit here with our mouths shut. And now they slaughter the whole family.
Yeah.
And obviously there was no protection for them. So the king wrote to all the people to make a decree. Men tremble. So he made a decree, men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is living God. He delivereth and rescued him, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered.
I kind of want to emphasize here too, when we mention God's wrath and like how crazy this is. For anyone listening who's like not a follower, this isn't a scare tactic. We're not trying to like, scare you into being a Christian or a follower. If anything, I feel this would defer you. If I was a listener, this would defer me. I'd pretend I did not just hear that story, and I would just pretend that didn't happen. And
like, what was episode 3?
Yeah.
What episode?
And in reality, what we're trying to say here is, let's be glad that God's showing the mercy he is now, because it was a different time back then. And yes, there is reality, and I believe that there is reality where you could live a life like that in a lion's den where you're being consumed by lions. It's kind of, well, yes and no. I'm saying hell, right? Like, I'm saying that there's a place where you don't get to spend eternity with God. And some of these stories are kind of just bringing light into that reality of like that fear you feel when hearing that portion. If you do feel any, like that fear, it should be, you should acknowledge it, yes, but we're not here to scare you in the believing by any means. This is just to us as followers. This is a pretty cool story, and it's insane to know how different God's become in our generation. So, in AKA the New Testament, Jesus being the ultimate sacrifice really, really changed God's forgiveness towards us. Because as you can see back then, if you weren't a faithful follower Christian, and even if you fell off sometimes, you didn't stand a chance. Where I'm sure that those people got pushed into that lion's den, and maybe they thought, Daniel lived, we can too. The lions killed him. Or
see, I'm the complete opposite. I think they do.
Or they started praying, like,
yeah,
we know what's going to happen to us. God, please save us now. And God was like,
too late.
It's too late.
Yeah.
So no, this is not a scare tactic at all. And maybe we'll do another week of this where we break into some New Testament stuff, and you guys will truly see how this has shifted. But again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I just wanted to reiterate that we're not trying to scare you into believing in God. Sorry, John, as you were.
No, you're fine. So kind of like ending my little Daniel thing. So if you notice throughout, and go back and read Daniel, like, don't take this as like everything, because I'm pretty sure we butchered a little bit, but mainly me. I'm a planner. He's a improv 2 kind of guy. So,
yep.
But Daniel didn't fight back. He didn't panic. He just prayed, and he stayed consistent. And that's something, like, for me, I struggle with that consistency of taking that dedicated time.
Turn that fan off.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I cut him off. This fan is got my toes. It's got my toesies.
Oh, your little toesies a little cold.
Yeah, my little toesies are cold.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, so back where I struggle with staying consistent. Like, I appreciate that story of he was put through misery and he never skipped a beat. Our lame excuse of, oh, I was busy, I had work, it sucks. So it even going back and looking at this, it teaches me that I need to be what is it? Dude, my brain's so like done.
More faithful.
I need to be more faithful and consistent and being intentional about setting that time.
There's a verse towards the end of that, because we kind of proofread what he was going to read before we did this. And when Darius, which, by the way, you guys may be wondering, if the people who accused Daniel of this are thrown in the lion's den, why isn't Darius? And I was thinking about that, but as you were reading, Darius seemed rather concerned for Daniel. And it almost felt like him signing that law was pressed on him.
Like he didn't fully understand what it meant
fully
at the
understand,
time.
or like maybe he didn't want to, but he still signed it. And so then, like you kind of mentioned halfway through, and in a way I kind of interpreted it, maybe it's the wrong interpretation, but the way you were saying it was like, you made this law, should you not abide by it? And so at that point he had to. Because originally, when I had seen that, it seemed like that Darius was almost mad that Daniel had not followed the law, and he was told to be thrown into the lion's den.
But I think he was following the policy. So he wrote the policy.
Right.
And so because the policy doesn't work for you, you're not going to follow it. I think so he's like, I wrote it. So like, I made my bed, I'm going to lie in it. But he was genuinely like freaked out because he cared about Daniel. He put him in that spot.
Yeah.
But he had enemies.
So I think mercy was shown there.
Yeah.
But okay, so I know this sounds like a repeat, but Daniel 6 verses 20 and 21. When he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? Then Daniel said unto the king, O king, live forever. So that's what he said when he rose up, kind of just saying, oh, well. And then he says, God sent an angel. Yeah. I had a point when he was rising out of the live forever quote there. It's just living in this faith, man.
This is where I would like to be like, hey, like, what did you mean in this aspect here? Like, what's the contact? Can you look that up, maybe? And then I'm gonna kind of finish closing on Daniel. He was consistent. He didn't fight. He didn't panic. He just stayed cool and prayed and stayed consistent on it. And then his faith, like he stayed faithful. It cost him his entire life has been a struggle. So it cost him everything. And God used him and his story and his life and his experiences to kind of shift the whole kingdom. And then this is kind of just a thought. So whenever you're in life, maybe you feel the pressure to conform to society, especially being believers in 2025, is maybe it feels like people are like, you just water down your faith and, oh, this is acceptable. This is acceptable. So kind of be more like Daniel, be faithful, be steady, be consistent, stay faithful, and let God handle as I'm going to say, the lions.
Yeah. An armor.
Yeah. So, I would say it's something that everybody struggles with, especially being a young adult Christian, with everything, with social media, the internet, people you hang around. So like you can't even work in a place where you can freely go out and do everything. So like, especially kind of my job, I kind of work alone a lot of the times, but I don't. And the believers in my job, it's like, you're a believer? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cool. So then we have that like little click.
Yeah.
But just because it adds, what am I saying? And we're probably all wrong for this, but even my boss does the same thing. He's a believer. So, go back. His kids actually went to the small private school I went to when I was young.
Oh, that's cool.
And so like we're kind of from the same area.
Yeah.
I picked up cues when he was my boss. Like he trained me and did all that stuff, worked with me a little bit. And so I guess he was my boss, and then now he's my boss again. So I've had him for a while, but I'm like, do you believe in God? Oh yeah, he plays in the worship band, does everything. And I'm like, I did ask him this. I said, why don't you advertise that? And he goes, well, in this business, it gets used against you more than anything. And so I want people to notice by my actions, and it works just based off of you because you recognize that difference
Yeah.
of you're not cussing, um you're not vulgarly talking dirty and doing all this stuff. You stick out. So then I noticed that is when I was running my business is I just maintained that. And then that would actually prompt conversations when I was with customers. They're like, "Are you a believer?" Yeah, yeah, I am. Okay, I noticed. I noticed you never would get into these conversations. You never cursed. You never. And now that I'm in like corporate level, the same thing happens when you're on like work trips and stuff like that, or in meetings, and then people talk to you after. So like when you showed up, my phone was like blowing up.
Yeah.
It's because we've had meetings all day, jumping back and forth, and then that's now our time to like talk. But it's just kind of, I forget where I was going with this.
I think you're going for like we all fall into the path of kind of hiding our Christianity in a way.
Yeah, and because it gets used against us. Because I would say the secular world thinks, oh, you're a Christian, you're perfect, and it's like the polar opposite.
Yeah, like when people hear the word Christian, they're ready for judgment, which is it's sad.
Which I wish okay, so I truthfully wish we started the podcast with this to kind of open the mind of like, let's say the non-believers or the skeptical people.
Yeah.
Because I would say if you're a Christian versus a secular person or a non-believer, the differentiating factor is I know I'm broken. I know I'm messed up. I'm not perfect, but I acknowledge it. And obviously I believe in Jesus died on the cross and everything.
Yeah.
And I want to do better. And I want people to hold me accountable. I want God to hold me accountable. And then I'm going to surround myself with people that are going to hold me accountable. I'm not perfect, and I'll never be perfect.
It is.
And so I think, especially talking with people, is they're like, oh, you must be holier than no, I'm just as broken as you.
Yeah. It is crazy to hear that shock. Like for me, I worked for a moving company for 6 months. And if you guys don't know, maybe you're like even if you're a blue collar or whatever area you're in, I want to say the moving company on the scale of like blue collar to like Walmart, this was a pretty low job to have, in my opinion. I'm not going to judge this job. I thanked God every day for getting that job. As a matter of fact, kind of building up to that, I always tell the story to people, but one of my biggest like realizations and like bondages I've had with God was I was in a struggle looking for a job, and I prayed to God, and I requested, give me anything. And he gave me something. It was this moving company. This moving company beat me up, and you guys can believe me or not, but I was doing work in this hospital, and I had 30,000 steps before lunchtime. Like this job required a lot out of me. I had coworkers who didn't want to work. But anyway, this is not the point. I'm not going to dive into that. Those guys had noticed, just much like you and your boss, I didn't cuss. I stayed away from inappropriate conversations. They would talk about girls and stuff. And when I say they talked about women, I should say not girls, because that's a weird thing in our culture right now. But they would talk about women and not just like, like talking about them as a like hey, I was talking to this girl the other day, and like
It's like vulgar.
vulgar things. And so for me, I'm like, let's
I'm out.
not dive into this. And you're like, what's going on with you? I'm like, I'm a Christian. I'm pretty sure I made that known when I first met them all. But so for the rest of the time, my brother and I, because my brother worked with me too, we got called like Christian, and then we got called other names too. But amongst that, like it's crazy because you see these people, and I still pray for them to this day. How their lives were and how they were living, and I'm not saying it's bad. Everyone's living their own life. I'm not here to judge them. I'm really not. And the way I may be wording it might sound like I'm belittling them. I'm not. As a matter of fact, one of them had actually talked to my brother and I a little bit just while we were moving stuff. He had some curious questions, and we were just there to answer them. And I feel like that's how Christians should approach situations. I'm not going to speak for Christians as a whole, right? But I know that a lot of Christians are brimstone and fire. Yes, there is reality. If you don't follow God, you are going to hell, right? That there is that reality. But do we have to pressure that so quickly? No. I think, like you said, this is a good thing to do is to lead by example. And by leading by example, you see the results. People ask, and even if in the heat of the moment they're not asking you questions about God, but rather saying oh, I just noticed you're a Christian because you don't cuss and you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't go to parties, you don't get drunk, you don't do all these things. We notice that, and maybe cool, okay, they noticed it, they think it's pretty neat, they walk away. But then that's kind of, in a way, you could think that's planting a seed.
No, yeah, because you're gonna go back and think about that later. Because how many times do you go have a conversation throughout the day, and then you end the conversation, go on about your day, and then later that evening you're sitting there thinking you go back and think that, unless that's just me.
No, I always do that.
But I'll go back and rethink it, and so with doing that, yeah, you're planting that seed. They're gonna go back, and humans by nature are curious.
Yeah.
So they got that little taste. Well, now I'm curious because I want to know more about it. I want to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say it does plant a seed, and it's subtle. It's no pressure. It's a calmer environment, and that's something. It'll be a later podcast. Is we're going to talk about is there's I would say there's 3 types of churches. I call it the old school Southern Baptist Church, which is fire and brimstone. It is a very...
When he talks about these guys, we are not judging the church. It is not our place. It's not our place to judge people. It's not our place to judge the churches you go to. I guess it's hard to say. Yes, we have our opinions on them. I think
so. They're good because I'll say that. I'll say a positive on it is it's good because if you're younger growing up in it, it gives you your core values of your hard points, and it gives you your facts to back things up. But if you're if let's say you're a teenager, you're a young adult jumping into that, majority of the time it's going to do more harm than good.
Yeah.
If you grow up in it, it's cool. It's what you expect. But if you're somebody who's never gone to church and you're oh, I'm going to go to this church, and you sit in a service like that, you're going to be horrified.
I would argue it depends on who you are. Because let's say you're a person who kind of wants to ease into a relationship with God. You want to ease into this idea, and you want to kind of just test the waters. Yeah. Then I would say go to a more conservative Baptist church or non-denominational. But if you're the kind of person, and this is kind of me, for me, I like to be hit hard. I don't like sugarcoats. I don't like them. If you have something to say to me, say it straight up. And so I would say for me, if you're a new follower and you're I really want to dive into this and I want to be hit, I want to
feel it.
I want to feel this. I would say, yeah, go to one of those brimstone fire churches, because trust me, you're going to get a message out of it, and it will set your morals, and it will guide you towards a strong foundation. I'm not saying that the non-denominational or the more conservative Baptist church is not going to do that. It 100% will. And I'm not saying it's going to do it slower either. It's just a different approach. It's about how
it's a different teaching style.
Yeah, it's about how you want your approach to be. So I know for me, growing up in school, I had troubles with reading. And to the outside eye, this may sound terrible, but for me, I took it as a lesson, and it made me a 12th grade reader by the time I was in ninth grade, I think, or 8th. But I remember sitting in the living room with my dad, and like he was telling me to spell words I couldn't spell. I couldn't spell you. I couldn't spell okay. So I spell okay, and I'm like, okay. He's like, no, it's not how you spell it. And
Technically, yes. O and K.
yeah. And to avoid like any sort of like weird conflict you guys might think towards my dad, he's a great guy. I am gonna sugarcoat this a little bit, but he's like, do you want to be in the? I think I was 5th grade at that time. So do you want to be in the 5th grade forever? Do you want to have that mindset forever? Like, no, you don't. And so like for me, like it took him stabbing at me to improve. And so for me, I would say like that strict Baptist or that I wouldn't say strict Baptist, but old school brimstone and fire preaching is what I needed as a kid. So, like John said, yeah, it's really of the teaching style.
Well, and that goes, so not saying, gender roles and everything, but when you have both parents, what role does your mom take? She's the nurturing one, the kind one, the gentle. And then sometimes you need your dad. Hey, cut it out.
Yeah.
Or, you need that. Sometimes you need that stern talk. And sometimes, like, I'm the same way. Sometimes, like, I just need to be geared a certain way, or like, hey, I need help with this, blah, blah, blah. And then other times I'm like, just lay it out.
Yeah.
Like, give me it. I don't care if it hurts. Like, I need to know. Let's get it done,
Yeah.
So
it's those conversations that have me jumping in my seat where someone's like, I've been meaning to talk to you about, and they're like, you can tell they're kind of stepping, I'm like bouncing in my seat.
just say it.
Say it.
Yeah. Like, if you got an issue, especially like in work, is I don't have time to tiptoe.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's an issue. Here's where you're not going. Let's talk it out. Let's do it. Or if vice versa, if you've got an issue, like I'm not trying to say like let's fight, but like let's have it out.
Yeah.
Let's get it over with. If you need a neutral party there, let's have a neutral party.
A friendly argument.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say friendly argument, discussion.
Yeah.
So,
well, one could argue that arguing can be friendly. Arguing is not. I guess in my mind, I'm reading arguing also as discuss. Because I guess in your context it would be discuss.
I would say it's a describing factor to a discussion.
Yeah, well,
because you can argue.
Argue is disagreeing on something, where discussing is just discussing that problem.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because arguing to be like, I like Suzuki, I like Honda, and then that would be, we could have a friendly argument over what's better.
I mean, Honda's cooler.
See, like we can have a friendly argument over that.
Yeah.
Whereas the discussion is, hey, we have a problem. Okay, let's talk about it. So I'm sorry. That was a little bit of a journey, but yes, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't know how we got here.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah. Yeah. Friendly discussion. Anyway. I kind of want to dive into this story of Job before we get too late. I think we're sitting at about an hour now. I do think we can get through this in a relatively timely manner. The reason why I want to go through Job is because Job is one of my favorite stories in the whole Bible. Like when I first heard this story, it really impacted me and how I view my faith. So
I can better follow along. What a chapter.
This is going to be all of Job. So this isn't just Job chapter 1. This is all of it. And it's going to be sort of bouncing around chapters. So again, this is just a summary of the whole thing. I will mention the verses as it calls them. But anyway, story of Job is a profound exploration of suffering, faith, and divine justice, written in a combination of prose and poetic dialogue. It tells the story of Job, a righteous and prosperous man who loses everything. The book opens by introducing Job as a blameless and upright man, blessed with a large family, immense wealth, and great respect. His piety is noted even in heaven. Satan, appearing before God, challenges Job's integrity, claiming that Job only serves God because of the blessings he receives, and God permits Satan to test Job, allowing him to take away all possessions, his servants, and finally his children, but forbidding him to harm Job physically. Despite these immense losses, so to like really emphasize on this, I believe this is how Job tells it too, is Job's just chilling. And then all of a sudden, his cattle's gone. His family's gone, dies. His wealth gone, house obliterated. And so amidst those losses, Job, wow, I said Job. That's going to happen. Job remained steadfast, proclaiming, naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. This is Job chapter 1, verse 21. That's where that came from. Satan then challenges God again, arguing that Job will curse God if he is afflicted physically. God allows Satan to strike Job with grievous boils from head to foot, even in this suffering. So imagine boils. And I believe that I know this in that chapter, and I'm sure it's going to reference it here in a minute. He is using pottery to scrape those boils. So he's taken broken pots and is scraping to itch his wounds.
So you got to imagine the pain
Oh
and discomfort, because you're talking, he says, all over his body.
Yeah.
So from head to toes. So you're talking everywhere. And it's got to be uncomfortable and itchy and painful, because at that time, you ever get a mosquito bite?
Yeah.
And sometimes so I do this a lot at night, and it like drives me crazy because I'm asleep and I just do it. You'll scratch it so much it's like bleeding.
Oh yeah.
So you imagine that's what he's doing, because that broken pottery is sharp.
Oh yeah. He does not care. He's cutting.
Yeah, it's just so I feel for him.
So even in the suffering, Job refuses to curse God, though his wife urges him to do so. 3 of Job's friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, came to confront him. However, their comfort quickly turns into a series of lengthy debates. Each friend, operating under the conventional wisdom of their time, argues that Job's suffering must be a consequence of some hidden sin, and they repeatedly urge him to confess his iniquity so that God might restore him. Job, maintaining his innocence, defends himself against those accusations. He expresses his deep anguish and confusion, questioning why he is suffering if he has done no wrong. He longs for an audience with God to plead his case, confident that he would be vindicated. A 4th, younger man named Elihu, who had been listening to the debates, then speaks. He criticizes both Job and his friends. He contends that Job has been presumptuous in his demands for vindication, and that the friends have been unfair in their judgments. Elihu suggests that suffering can be a disciplinary tool from God intended to refine and teach, rather than solely to punish. Finally, God answers Job out of a whirlwind. Instead of directly addressing Job's questions about his suffering, God delivers a series of rhetorical questions that highlight his infinite power, wisdom, in his creation. God humbles Job by revealing the vast chasm between human understanding and divine majesty. In response, Job humbly acknowledges his limited understanding and repents of his earlier presumptuous statements. Job 42, 5-6. I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes have seen. Wherefore I abhor myself and repent in the dust of ashes. After Job's repentance, God rebukes Job's 3 friends for their incorrect counsel and requires them to offer sacrifices, with Job interceding on their behalf. God then restores Job's fortunes twofold, giving him more children, greater wealth, and a long and prosperous life. So that's a very summed up version of Job. And the reason why I like that is because through this whole thing, it's about faith, man, and following God. Through that whole thing, he didn't strike God down, and he just stuck with it, man. And so like right here it says this is in Job 20 to 20, Job 1, 20 to 22, and then Job 2 chapter 2 verse 10. In the face of overwhelming difficulties is crucial. True faith is tested in the crucible of suffering, and it's during these times that our trust in God, or whatever, is most critical. Let's see here. Job's friends, while initially well-intended, become increasingly accusing and self-righteous in their they just believe that Job was doing wrong, but he wasn't. They were kind of just assuming. But
Something I kind of want to add a little is, so you know how we go through like our ups and downs, where you can call like our storms.
Yeah.
That, especially through this, is just because you're going through a down or you're going through a storm, it's not because not all the time is because you did something wrong or God's punishing you. Is sometimes God has to break you down a little bit, humble you a little bit to build you back up better.
Yeah.
And so this story, it's once again, this is still Old Testament, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So once again, Old Testament, pretty brutal. God destroys everything and then brings it all back.
It wasn't God that destroyed that, it was Satan in this story.
Yeah.
But yes.
But so he went through a very long storm, but came out better. And didn't lose his faith, didn't curse God. So yeah, Job never cursed God, but he did question him a little bit. So so it's not wrong to question. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, I think it's through those trials and tribulations, in the end, there is reward. Now, is the reward what we think it is? No. As a matter of fact, here it says, while suffering is a part of life, faithfulness and perseverance, even through implicable trials, trials can ultimately lead to restoration, blessing, and a deeper relationship with God. This doesn't mean that all suffering is immediately followed by an earthly reward, but it speaks to the ultimate triumph of righteousness and God's faithfulness. So, kind of relating it to the story of the donkey, right? Like, through that trial and tribulation, maybe you're putting down your wealth, you're putting down maybe a bond that you thought you had with a friend, but this friend really has been toxic in your life. Through that trial, through that loss of wealth, maybe through, let's say for me, removing Instagram 4 years ago, through that, it's built me closer to God. And to you guys, it's building you closer to God, right? So yeah, Job, unfortunately and fortunately, had suffered that without even like making that movement. And sometimes we do have that. Like, God will stop us dead in our tracks and put us through a trial, and it's unexpected for us. That bad? It can. That can't happen. But yeah, it's a trial, and it's also important to know that through it, much like Job, God should be there with us. He should be the center of that. You know what I mean? Yeah. He faces humility. That's a good one too. Job humbles himself, acknowledging God's greatness and his own limited understanding. So, like, God kind of corrects him and he humbles himself. That's another thing too, is we need to be humble through those times. We can't try to take control.
Yeah.
Sorry, what do you have? I know you're kind of...
So I have a couple. So we talked about that. I would say so God sees the bigger picture. So even when you're going through what Job went through, this is where faith comes in, is God sees the bigger picture. He sees the beginning and the end. So having that faith through it, that God sees the bigger picture, it's beyond our understanding and that God is in control. Even though, like, even in today's, we don't always give that up. We don't give that control because we want to keep that and hold that. But, it sounds like Job kind of did, because he didn't, completely divert or go out and do something to where a donkey has to stop you and you argue with the donkey.
Yeah, he gave God full control. He just wanted to know why.
Yeah. So now on that, I don't think all the time I don't think it's wrong to, I don't want to say question God, because when you say question, it's like you doubt, but sometimes like asking God a question. You get what I mean?
To like understand reasoning.
Yeah. So I think maybe that's what
Well,
Job was asking, is just for some understanding
Yeah.
of kind of what's going on. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree, but it's also neat to see that, like, you know, through that trial and then after you face it, you can reference Job's story here too, but I kind of want to reference it more to life, but I'm going to first reference it to Job. In Job's life, he questioned it, kind of was wondering why, but then in the end he understood, right? And then through that understanding, he had seen that, but then he got twofold of what he already had. So it was like, oh, I understand why I went through this, but it wasn't to earn, again, that kind of sounds like it was to earn it, like his twofold. It wasn't. It was to understand that he was sticking with his faith through that battle.
Yeah.
And for us, yeah, I feel like everyone through a trial is going to maybe question or try to understand it, but we're not going to until that trial is over and we look back at it and we're like, whoa, that's what happened and that's where I am now.
Yeah. You ever have that? Like when you're going through something, you're like, man, that like it kind of helps. Where you're glad that you went through that, but then you're like, man, I'm like, really, I shouldn't have to go through that, but I'm glad I went through that because I was able to help so and so
Yeah.
with that, or
Yeah.
I was able to not make that same mistake again
Right.
or something.
Yeah. The biggest thing I can think of, right, is like, yes, like things you've learned and then you can also spread it to others. And I feel like when you're talking to a friend about stuff like that and you're telling your friend like, hey bro, trust me, because of my past you don't want to do this, they tend to listen more. And I feel like, I don't know why, but some people towards their parents, they don't see that angle, right? And for me, it's hard sometimes, right? And I feel like a lot of our brains are kind of set on this dial of like, oh, my parents are just saying that because they like they don't want me to do this, uh because they just don't want me doing it. Like you feel like it's because they want control of you.
Well, yeah, your younger, I would say your younger self says that because nowadays, so like growing up, I was never told the why. So because I said so, or because the Bible says so,
Yeah.
but there was no why to, hey, this is why you shouldn't do this because of this consequence, or don't do this because I did this when I was a kid and I experienced this. I went through this. So
But now you can see as an adult.
now I can see it, but that causes a little bit of
Yeah.
issues because at work, which thankfully it is beneficial because it helps kind of you stand out a little bit, is
Yeah.
this is where I think I got in trouble a lot in school, is I always ask the why. Well, why?
Yeah.
And it's not me, and I come across like my words and how I ask stuff, like it's misunderstood a lot.
Yeah.
So when I ask why, it's not like I'm challenging you. I just want to know why.
Yeah.
So, hey, why are we operating this the way we are? Why are we doing this the way we are? And not having that growing up kind of doubled it down now that I'm an adult because I want to know the why to everything.
Yeah.
So when we submit this policy, why? What led us here to where we have to do this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if you're a big why
all about
asker.
how you was raised, but I would say my curious mind, yes, I am a rather why kind of person. I want to know the answer to things. I wanted a thorough explanation as to how I got from A to Z. But like the biggest thing I can think of right now is my parents back in the day, and as a kid you may have gotten punished when you were kids too, but I was a spanking household, and I
Oh
talked
yeah,
about this
I
on
got a
the
lot of
first
spankings.
podcast. Yeah, I got
a lot.
spankings. And you know, your parents, they tell you, hey, don't do this. We was just talking about the I don't know if you guys are familiar with the guy on the guy who's drowning in the water and is praying for a lifeboat. But anyway, my dad always gave us 3 warnings. First was verbal. No, he gave us 2. First was verbal. Second was you're getting spanked. So he tells us the first time, don't do that. And I guess maybe our why factor was we're gonna do it anyway. And when that happened, of course, we got spanked. But there's a lot of stuff back in the day, like we don't lie. Like you said, don't lie. And I feel like we never really asked why.
Why? Well, because the Bible says
But
so.
when we did it, we just got in trouble. And so growing up, now you can apply that to your life. Like, I like to be straightforward. I like to be honest. When something breaks at work, I'm not going to sit there and try to hide what I just broke. I'm not going to try to sweep it under the rug. Instead, who am I calling? I'm
My
calling my
boss.
boss. I'm telling him, hey, dude, I just jacked this up. What do I do? And you'd be surprised how much movement you can make through honesty, right? Like, me being honest, I didn't lose my job. Maybe if I broke something and I didn't talk about it and they found out, oh yeah, I did that.
Well, yeah, if you abuse it by like, oh, I wrecked a car because I was, obviously other sins are going to lead into that because I was intoxicated or I was on drugs or whatever. But like, yeah, if you mess up, first person I'm calling, hey boss, I screwed up. I need help.
Yeah.
Here's this. And then, and something else especially is you're only as good as your word. So if you can't take you at your word and you're going to constantly lie and not be truthful, it's hard. Who wants to hang around somebody like that?
You'd be shocked. We can do a whole podcast episode on today's society, but we're not.
Yeah.
We
got plenty of episodes, man.
Yeah. Maybe next episode. How are we looking on time?
We are 124.
Well, I think this is a great time to wrap up. I know today was a little different, a little improvised. Maybe we were a bit all over the place. Maybe it is. It's because I kind of wanted to be the star of this episode.
Hey, you did good. I liked it. So I was a little skeptical when you first, and I was like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. One thing which I wish this was at the beginning of the episode. So I might put a little caveat in the beginning. Hey, go to the last half hour, listen to the last half hour, and then go to the first, then listen to the rest of it. But even if you aren't a believer, I think it's still a good lesson because you can apply it to your life even if you're not a believer.
Yeah.
And so just listen to the episode as it is. And
if you're a curious-minded person, and I know I'm saying this towards the end of the episode, but I feel like I kind of might have addressed it at the start. I don't remember anymore. That was an hour and 20 minutes ago. But if you have a rather curious mind, you would listen to this, even if you're not a follower. A talking donkey. I have to hear that.
Yeah, I gotta hear the story.
Yeah. And the story of Job and his faith, that's maybe a little more guided towards the follower. And the story of Daniel and the lion's den, that can also be heard. But I will say to the follower out there, guys, I'm praying for you. Hopefully, wherever you're at in your spiritual journey, maybe today's episode helps feed you with something. And to the listener who's not a follower, hopefully maybe today we planted a seed. Maybe you've just been curious and you stumbled upon this episode and you've heard some good stories and you want to hear more. And there's plenty out there, maybe not from us, and who knows, maybe we'll come back in and do this every once in a while where we bring up some cool Bible stories. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I dig the episode. I like it.
So maybe we'll do this once a month or once every few podcast episodes. But if you guys want to hear more of that stuff, just go looking for it. You'll find it. We're not the only ones out here going over these cool Bible stories and these life lessons. Go find them. Seriously. I encourage it. Dive into the Bible. Dive into a church. Seriously, I recommend it. It'll impact your life. It's whatever style you guys choose, whatever you choose to listen to. With that being said, John, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, last thing I got is if you guys enjoyed the episode, definitely leave a comment. Share it with a friend because we're trying to grow some viewers. So share this. If you guys like it, I know not every episode's going to be everybody's cup of tea, but that's kind of what I'm going to call it our journey with this podcast is we're not going to have any off any no topics. So everything's above the board. Everything we're going to talk about everything. We have plenty of opportunity for more episodes. We would like your guys' feedback. So listening, if there's anything you think we could do better, leave a comment.
Yeah.
We both get them, and future episode ideas. So something I struggle with, and Will's a fly by the seat of his pants guy. I could tell him we're going to be doing biochemical engineering, he'd be like, all right, cool. I'm like, you need to do any preparing? No, I got this,
Yeah.
you know. But seriously, leave comments of topics you guys want to hear from, especially from you younger listeners.
Yeah.
If there's anything you guys are struggling with that maybe we can help, leave those comments. And we're going to try to gear our guests towards those experiences. So, you know, we may have somebody, I'm trying to come up with an example. We're going to try to gear our guests towards the topic.
Yeah.
So the best fitting guest that way, because they've already experienced it. They've already went through it. They know the result. And then we're kind of the
To
people.
help give you guys the best route that we possibly can for what you're asking.
Yeah. So, that's all I have. You are tasked with the outro.
Okay.
So
Cool.
you got
Put that on me last second. Also, if we had any brain farts during this whole thing, or even if you guys have a Bible story that you want us to read on and give our thoughts, put that in the comment too. I'd love to go over what you guys have found in the Bible. Like I was asking my coworker today, like, what's your favorite Bible story? And I was asking my mom, and I didn't get a chance to ask my dad. But yeah, if you guys have like any cool Bible stories you want us to dive into, please let us know, because I am more than willing to read them. I mean, we have the story of the ark, the fiery furnace, also in Daniel, the story of the fiery furnace. There's so many other stories we can cover that, like, my childhood nostalgic neurons might kick into during reading the comments or during me finding them. But anyway, as far as social media goes, guys, a little topic change. I'm gonna be real. I know we talked about it the last few episodes. We really need to start social media, guys. I am a off the media guy. I don't do it.
So I'll be responsible for it.
You can either be responsible for it or really, we don't have to do social media.
We will eventually. I gotta figure it out.
So
I'm in my elder 20s, so all this new technology, all this social media, like,
yeah, dude.
So I have social media, right?
Yeah.
But I hardly ever post.
Yeah.
So it's only so like TikTok obviously is the most mind-numbing waste of time of my life, but I can sit there for hours scrolling through TikTok videos. Instagram, I don't think I've posted on Instagram in like years. And then Facebook, I'll post something every now and then.
Yep.
That's about it. I'm a kind of a ghost.
I've never had TikTok. Removed Facebook recently, and like I said, I've been off Instagram for about 4 years now, so love being off social media. Anyway, guys, it was a good one, and like John said, share this, listen to it a couple times. Have a good one.